This morning, the investigation is just getting started into Delta Airlines plane that crashed and flipped over while landing at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. The airline says all 80 passengers and crew are accounted for, but there were at least 17 injuries, including a child who was hurt. There were wind gusts of 40 miles per hour and blowing snow when that accident happened. The plane took off from Minneapolis.
Former Air Force fighter pilot and aviation attorney Willard Shepard, he joins us live this morning to talk about what we saw. And Willard, thank you for being here. I think the first question is, a lot of people, especially experts, are looking into the wind gusts and how that may have played a factor. Do you think that was the cause here?
Well, Eric and Betty, you know, the NTSB is associated with this. The Canadian officials will lead this investigation, but they'll provide information here to the authorities here in the United States. When it comes to the wind, there were a significant amount of wind gusts that were up there, 38 knots, about 40 miles an hour, coming off from what we would call in the flying business a right 2 o'clock position, about 40 degrees off of that aircraft. When you're coming in to land, and these pilots would have calculated that to make sure that those weren't out of the limits for this particular airplane. They were not, but still that was something that they had to deal with. Also, the temperature up there was about 18 degrees Fahrenheit. It had been snowing. There could be some ice that was on the runway as well. And although they had cleared the runway there, those are the types of factors that were involved in this that could have flipped this airplane once they landed. The passengers on board saying certainly the plane touched down, and then all of this happened, including a fire, and one of the passengers reported an explosion.
Yeah, Willard, you know, I wanted to maybe focus for a moment on what maybe went right here. What did you maybe notice that passengers, flight attendants, and first responders did immediately after that hard landing that ultimately left to everybody walking away from this crash?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because obviously people are nervous after the number of incidents that we have unfortunately had here recently. I always say aviation is the safest way to get yourself from one place to another. If you can get to the airport on the highway, you are in good hands when you get to the airport. This was an incredible job across the board by the flight crew, by the flight attendants, by the first responders, and the passengers. Just imagine, those of us in the military have a lot of training about getting out of an aircraft, including if it's upside down. But imagine if you're a passenger on this aircraft, and not only do you have this incident, you end up upside down. And the seats in this aircraft were made to withstand 16 Gs. For those of you that love roller coasters, if you go up to Orlando, you're getting about 2.5 Gs. Oh, wow. In a fighter jet up to 9 Gs, so 16 Gs. So the engineering to keep the people and the seats intact, fantastic.
And Willard, very quickly, in the interest of time, I want to jump in as you're talking about this. It shows the importance of wearing your seatbelt, because I heard one of the passengers tell reporters that they felt like they were hanging like bats because they hung there for a little while before they could get off.
1,000%, and that's why the announcement's made to put your seatbelt on. Keep it on at all times. I want to encourage people this morning, pay attention to the flight attendants when you get on the plane, notify 2 exits to be able to get out, and then be able to execute that if you actually have to. The passengers did a great job, and I'll also recommend don't take any video. It's great for those of us who are journalists and for you this morning, but taking video in an emergency is not a good idea.
No, you got to get off that plane as quickly as possible. Thank you so much for joining us this morning and sharing your expertise with us on this big story. We truly appreciate it. Thank you so much.